Alright, so the next thing is we have to undo this screw over here, and this should take the locking plate off, I think. 2 hands. And I guess we'll have to take that screw off there as well. Alright, so we've got that screw out. That then allows us to bring everything up. And then separate everything apart. You have to be careful with the film not to damage it. And we've got that ring. I think it's a Mylar ring. And then we can turn this over very carefully. And we can see the lamp here and the film, and we will just carefully slide this off. And we need to remember which way the film goes on. Now, of course, Kyocera and Brother have to use halogen lamps to provide the heat, because the ceramic heater that's used in Canon and Hewlett-Packard equipment is patented. It's patented by Hewlett-Packard and Canon, which means they can't use it unless they pay a license fee, which obviously they're not going to do. So we can see it's pretty clean inside this fuser unit. The problem is the friction that's being applied by this fiberglass material here. It's also a silicone oiler. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to apply a bit of silicone oil to it, and that will then aid the lubrication of this film so that it rotates more freely. You can see on the inside of this film there is silicone oil, and right there in the middle we have a bit of an impurity going on. We might get in there and just clean that up with a rag. That's possibly a bit of toner that's gotten inside, and that behaves like glue when it heats up, so we'll clean that out. And we'll apply some silicone oil to it. We don't use fuser grease on this fuser because this is the applicator for the silicone oil. This is very similar to a printer from 20 years ago, an old QMS color laser printer. It used the same sort of fuser setup with a fiberglass oil impregnator on it. It was a QMS2, I think the model was, and then we just fixed them up by reapplying oil on this. So I'll go get my oil and we'll get into it. Alright, so this is my bottle of silicone oil. You can see how much. This is a 500 ml bottle. This is how much I've got left. I bought this bottle of silicone oil in 1997. doesn't go off, stays in the environment forever once it's produced, being a man-made substance. And yes, so since 1997, that's how much I've used. So one bottle of this will see an entire working career. So if you need that, you can buy that on my website. We're not doing 500ml bottles. We'll do a tiny little bottle that's enough to fix this fuser unit, and maybe a few hundred more for you if you want to get into the printer repair game. It's very important, do not get this oil on this lamp, otherwise the lamp will explode. So we're only going to apply this oil, a very small amount, to the actual fiberglass fabric. So, alright, I've got myself some cleaning rag. We're just going to stick that on the inside of the film, and we're going to just clean out the garbage that's on the inside of that film. Alright, so we've got our rag there inside the film, and it's just a case of pulling it backwards and forwards to clean what's inside there. If you have a lot of toner stuck inside there, put a bit of mineral turpentine on the rag, and that will just help clean the inside surface of that film out. Of course, if your film's torn, you can buy that on the website as well. Alright, so if we have a look inside the film now, it's all nice and clean, no impurities in there. We will then move on to oiling up this fiberglass felt. Okay, so the felt actually comes off very carefully. Now it's held in by these notches here. Alright, so we've got the felt out. If we have a look, we can see this felt is actually starting to strip a bit. A bit of dirt or something has gotten inside there. And yeah, that doesn't look too good. You feel it when you touch it that it has got silicone impregnated in it. So what we're going to do, I think, because this customer wants it done very, very cheaply, I think... No, we can't. We can't even turn that around. Bugger. We might be able to just strip it off and reverse the felt around the other way. Oh no. Or I might have to order that in because I don't have one. Alright, so let's run a bit of this over it. Of course, we don't want to get this on the lamp, otherwise the lamp will explode. We don't want this absolutely soaked, we just want to let it sit in. I'll just do a temporary fix on this. We'll replace this part later once I have one in stock. And we'll just trim this little bit off here because that'll be acting like a brake and breaking the yeah, I don't know what we'll do with that. I'll just leave that to soak in for a while into the fabric, and then we'll just wipe off any excess with a tissue. Alright, so we've just let that settle for about 10 minutes, soaking, and you can see that's really just been sucked up by the fabric. This fabric holds quite a lot of silicone oil in it. and after about 40 or 50,000 pages it just runs out of it. So I might just leave that for another 10 minutes. We'll see if the rest gets sucked into the fibres, and we'll just reassemble it and see what it does. But I really do need to replace that bit. Yeah, so that fabric, it really is just sucking it up. So we'll put that back together now. Hopefully it'll give a few months service while we wait for this new bit to come in. Okay, so we've got it dropped on. We've got the fuser lamp down there, locked in. And the trick is we've got to get this back on without the lamp touching. And there is no way I can get that film back on there one-handed. So, alright, let's get it back on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tilt it on its side like this. And we'll let gravity hold it in place while we slide it over. Alright, so the film's back on. We're just going to put the side plate back on, and that will be locked into position, and then we can just do the reverse of pulling it all apart, and we'll see if it works. Alright, so we have got the film back on. We've put the side plate back on over here. Put the screw back in. Put the screw back in over here. We now want to make sure that the lamp is in over here. And then we need to put this plate and get the lamp. This is the lamp holding plate, and we've got to get the lamp around. We've got to rotate the lamp around so it's in the notch properly over here. Alright, so we've got our plate on the side screwed back on, our film's on, and if we just rotate the film now, you feel it starts to rotate a lot freer now that it's got quite a bit of lubricant in there. And we should now see that when we put it back together, there are no more jams. And this should be no more fuzzy printing. It should be nice and clear. So, yeah, the rest of this, putting it back together, is pretty much the reverse of the start of the video. So, yeah, so I'll just put the rest of it back together now. And just review back through the video if you've forgotten any of the pull apart steps, and we'll see how this printer prints. So we've slid our backing plate on, it's locked into there. We then push the two leads back onto the temperature fuse. We bring our heater lamp over underneath the hook and we clip it back in. Like so. And I think now is the point at which we put it back on the fuser over there. Okay, so we're going to marry the two together. We've got to remember we've got our temperature sensor here, which needs to go into there, between the slot. And whilst we're putting it on, we're making sure that the film is not coming in contact with these push rods. Or pull rods, I should say. So we'll get that in between there. And we get that hook over there. No, so we've got to get that hook down there, and then we've got to get that hook on there. So I'm going to need 2 hands. So whilst I'm lifting that on, and that sensor in there is getting in, you've got to make sure down here the pull rods are going in the hole there, and you're clipping both swing hinges in at the same time, so it's really quite involved. You've got to be patient. Alright, so we've got that over there, we've got that over there, that's all on, and then we will put these locking bits back on. There's obviously a left and right side. I'll look at that in a minute. Okay, so we got to get that. Pull that gear out. Put the screw in and lock that side down. Alright, so that locking plate's there, so that's now locked, it won't come free. We go around to the other side and we put in the opposite locking plate there. Screw in. So I've got a screw in, so the top is now locked. Spin it around. We will put the springs, pressure springs, back in here on both sides, and then we'll put that plate back in. Alright, so we've got this spring over here locked on. Go over here and we'll lock this spring on. We'll put our plate back in, our guide plate. Like so, we'll put the 2 screws back in here. Both screws are back in, plate's on. We now need to swing it around, and we need to put this fuser drive gear and its locking clip back on. Find its notch, there we go. Push it in all the way. Alright, now I've made a mistake when I've tried to put this gear on. It doesn't go in far enough, and that's because on the other side, if I have a look, the bearing has popped out. See if we can focus that a bit better. So the bearing down here, this thing right there, that's popped out of where it's supposed to sit. So I'm just going to undo these springs, take the pressure off, make sure I get that bearing locked in, and then before I tighten the springs back up, we'll put this gear on. Alright, so I just made sure that that bearing there is locked in, and now we can put the gear on. And there is enough space there to put the clip on. Okay, and now we will tighten up these springs. Alright, so the next step is we put the plates back on, left and right obviously, and put the screws in that lock them into place in here and down there. Alright, so that plate's now screwed on. We need to put this plate on, but we also have to pay attention to the leads on this side. So this is going to go through here, if my memory serves me correctly. And then we simply screw that plate back on as well, like so. I'll put the screws in there and the screw down the bottom. Okay, the side plate's back on. We've put in the screw that was in here. We've put in the screw that was down here. Now we need to run the cables down and put these plastic clips back on, clipping this to the body. Alright, so we've got the clips back on, the leads back on. We're on the home stretch now. We just simply got to put the, make sure we got our leads plugged in. Yep, that all looks good. Oh, we need to do the thermistor. That's what we forgot about. Almost created a disaster then. We get the thermistor and we'll put the screw back through it there as well. Screw in. And you'll notice this thermistor is on an angle. It doesn't go flat like other printer manufacturers. Just carefully screw that in. So that's now screwed in on its angle. Alright, so at this point the plate is the final piece to go on, but what we want to do is we want to just push on the drive gear here and make sure that everything is freely rotating. Let's see if I can get this a bit lighter. So I'm pushing like that, and you can now see that the film on top is rotating very, very, very freely. I reckon that's going to be fixed temporarily until we get that new felt in. But I might try and convince the customer to buy a different brand of printer that is far more pleasant to work on and that rarely breaks down. Plate on, we'll put in the 4 screws, we'll whack it back in the printer and we'll see what it does. Alright, 4 screws are back in. This unit is all back together. Let's chuck it in the printer and see what happens. Got to do those 4 screws, plug the leads in. It's pretty easy from this stage. Alright, so the 4 screws are all in. Now we will plug the leads back in. Like so, we will carefully, this is the dangerous bit because you don't want to bend the pins on this plug. Okay, that's in. Hook it around its little clips. I won't bother putting all this back on. We'll plug it in and we'll see if it is a happy printer. Almost forgot, I'll put the rear door back in. This side goes in first. Push the tray out of the road, push that in, and we put that in the notch down there. might have to pull the chassis apart just a little bit just to get it in the hole. Okay, so that's in. We got the cover over here, and then we got the cover in there. I think there's another cover here too as well.